10 Steps Further is a podcast designed to help you get 10 steps further along your spiritual journey. If you've been on your journey for 30 years or 30 minutes, if you believe in God, or even if you're not sure He exists, all we're trying to do is help you get 10 steps further. I'm Jonathan, and this is Jack, and we're just taking a walk. Why don't you join us? Good morning, everybody, or whatever time you're listening to this. It is another episode of 10 Steps Further. We are still in the morning here.
Yeah, we are.
We almost had to push back.
It's pretty late in the morning, actually. For Jonathan and I, it's 9:40. For Jack, it's like I just going to wake up right now and come to the office.
I don't think we've ever said what time we are recording except today. That was obviously a jab.
Yeah.
We were supposed to start at 9. What happened, Jack?
So okay, here's what happened. Well, first off, what all these guys know is that at 9:16, I texted them because I had just got up.
Right.
Like I just woke up and I said, oh my gosh, it's 9:60. I was supposed to be here for a 9 o'clock podcast.
Yeah.
Well, this is a terrible story, but we have a puppy, right?
Right.
So do you guys ever in your house, like, accidentally leave the heat on and then you wake up in the middle of the night and you hear it blowing
so
and it's hot and
Yeah.
it's awful? Well, I woke up at 3:30 in the morning.
Okay.
And the heat was on, and then I tried to turn it off, and I couldn't.
Right.
And I had to go stumble for cheaters glasses,
Right.
so that I could actually turn it off. And then the puppy woke up.
Okay.
Oh, no.
So at 3:30 in the morning, I got to console the puppy and get him back. So I just pull him into a different bed. So it's me and the puppy sleeping there.
Right.
And so I pull him into a different bed. Well, about 7 o'clock, I wake up, and Jelaine wakes up, and we have another dog. And I'm in this full-size bed, and they decide to join me. So Jelaine's sleeping on one side, the puppy's between us, so Jasmine's at the bottom, and I slept 2 more hours straight with everybody, with 4 creatures,
With an
in a
alarm going off
full-size
in the
bed.
other room,
and
or
I'm
what?
absolutely positive that when my wife finds out that I told this story, she'll be mortified.
Why do people do this? Like, I don't understand why him and Jelaine did this. You know, for our audience, you know, they got all these kids in their house, and they finally get to the point where they get all the kids out of the house. Then they adopt a girl. She comes here. Now she's in the house. And then they're like, okay, she's about to get out of the house within the next couple of years. So they're like, let's get more people. You guys are just codependent. It's codependency, huh?
I don't know. But the dog's a whole story.
Yeah.
Does the podcast group know the dog story? Like that we had a dog, we got a dog off of Craigslist.
Right. I don't know.
I thought his name was Parvo.
Yeah.
When really that's actually a disease the dog had.
Instantly, he got Parvo. And
Right.
like 8 days in, we thought, oh, he's done.
Yeah.
He's done, and he
Yeah.
lived. So we call him Miracle Mookie or Money Pit Mookie.
Yeah.
His name's Mookie, yeah.
Yeah, but now
Okay.
he just keeps us up
All
at
right,
night.
well, let's
I'm
pray and
sleeping
we'll
less.
just call it a day.
Yeah.
It was a good episode.
So what are we talking about today?
So there's this kid, and he's living with his family, and he's like 17 years old. And you know how now 17 years old.
I got one of those.
Yeah, you do. They just want to get away from you. They want to hang out with their friends. And in some ways, if you push them too much, they're just going to get angry with you, and they're going to want to run from you. So the 17-year-old goes to his dad and says, hey, man, I'm done with this place. I'm sick of you pushing me around. Give me my inheritance. I'm taking off. I'm going to go to Las Vegas.
Okay.
And I'm just going to make my life in Las Vegas. He's not making a life. He's not getting a job. He's blowing it, man. He's reckless. He's gambling. He's spending on women, all that. So then, after all that, he finally he's done. He loses all of his money, which is multiple thousands of dollars, and it's gone. And he goes, he's on the strip. He's been thrown out of his hotel, and he's looking on the ground. He's back at this big, giant bin behind a restaurant. He's finding old pizza boxes. He's eating cheese off of them, and he finally says to himself, "Man, gosh, even the people that work for my dad eat better than this. I'm going to go home, and I'm just going to beg him to let me back in." So he comes back home. Well, his dad sees him down the street as he's walking, and he starts in his speech. His dad doesn't even let him finish the speech. He picks him up, he hugs him, and he says, "Man, welcome back." And that night they throw this massive party for him just because he was home. Now, meanwhile, he has an older brother. His older brother, he's like the straight-laced guy. He's the guy that graduates from Harvard,
Right.
He's the guy that gets he's amazing. And he's never had a party like that because his dad's always pretty tight with the money. And he's pissed. Like, why? What why are you doing this for this guy who's a loser? He blew all of his money on gambling and women and cars and junk. He said, well, man, dude was lost, and now he's back. So we know that story, right? It is called...
Story of the Prodigal Son, yeah.
That's right. Do you know the word prodigal is not in the Bible? It's the people that have put the Bible together that created the word prodigal. And what that word really means is reckless.
That makes sense for the story.
Yeah, it's the reckless son.
Absolutely.
I'm wondering if, I think we've all experienced being in a relationship with somebody who's reckless. Who is that person in your life?
Jonathan. Absolutely.
Well,
a very reckless
certainly.
person.
I should have at 9:30, a half hour later.
I never relate the story of the prodigal son. I never relate it to who do I know that has been that. It's all that story's just always been. That's my story. That has always been. I've related with that story the most out of any story in the Bible, and so I've always thought about it in my experience rather than who do I know that is like that. That's reckless. I could think of one. And it was my buddy Joey, and we kept trying to. When we all got sober, we started a Bible study together, and it was a bunch of people. We were all doing drugs at the same time, and we all kind of went our separate ways. And a couple years later, we found out that all three of us were actually Christians now. And like one of us went to jail, one of us went to prison, one of us went to rehab. We all got out at the same time. We're like, oh yeah, I'm a Christian. They're like, oh, I am too. So we're like, well, let's meet up. So we got a Bible study going, and then we tried to get Joey in it. Joey was still kind of a recluse, on the run, heroin addict still, and he kept coming back. So he would come, he would be in the Bible study with us, but then he'd kind of go on the run. He'd go and do reckless things like the prodigal son and come back. And we kept trying to get Joey just like, man, just give your life fully to Jesus. But he didn't have the same story of the prodigal son. He overdosed. His mom found him in his bedroom, heroin on the ground, needles on the ground. It was a tragic story. So when I think of the prodigal son, I think of my own experience, and I think of Joey too.
Yeah.
So I have a fun story from last night.
Is that right?
So have you heard of the monolith?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, the monolith. You know what that
the
is?
monolith.
It's like this. They've been appearing all over. I guess there's one in Romania.
Jack follows COVID news, maybe a little political news here and there, sports news. But he does not follow.
Wait. No, none of that is accurate. None of that is accurate.
He doesn't follow.
I don't know anything.
He doesn't know anything.
That
not even
my wife
monoliths.
doesn't tell me. I don't know anything.
Okay, so
that's
that's
not on a
funny.
news source, unless it's unless it's breaking news into this NFL game.
Right.
They need to talk about the monoliths in the
So
NBA
the
game.
monoliths are these like towers. I don't know if they're like 20 feet high or something, but they're these small things. They've been in Utah. They just appear in random places. Most of the time, they've been out in the middle of nowhere. I think Romania had one. So I just heard about them like yesterday because one of them.
Yeah, I'm showing Jack a picture of what it looks like.
One
See,
of
look
them
at mysterious monolith vanishes from San Diego parking lot 1 hour ago.
Wait. So
wow.
Keep going, Jonathan.
So these monoliths.
Asher stole the monolith. That's what we're getting.
So the monoliths are. So there was a news stories yesterday of, hey, there's one in Scripps Ranch. There was a monolith in Scripps Ranch. And so Asher and his buddies, they're like, hey, we're going to go. Can we go see the monolith? I was like, sure. They were down there for less than half an hour. They're like, hey, let's see if we can pick it up. Oh, yeah, it's not as heavy as it looks. And then and there's a crowd of people coming to see it.
Okay.
And then somebody tackles the thing and just knocks it over. It wasn't his crowd.
Oh,
But
all
it
right.
breaks it into like 2 or 3 pieces. So then him and his buddies decide they're going to put it in our car, his Sequoia, and drive it away. So he took this monolith. So like thousands and thousands of people have seen it. And so I had a talk with them about like, that says some stuff about you. It says some good things and it says some not good things. But like it also sets you apart. Like thousands and thousands of people have seen this thing, but only one person drove off with it.
On Tuesday night, San Diego Police Department, Officer John Buttle, if you're listening, John, said police received a report of a group who came up to the monolith and knocked it over. Buttle said the group that loaded the monolith into a truck and left. Buttle said it was unclear if anyone in that group owned the monolith or if the group was partaking in the game. Perhaps, as in cases of monoliths on the move all over the world, the monolith will show back up in another part of San Diego County.
Okay,
Maybe it won't.
So that means they need
to put it somewhere.
that this podcast will come out in a month. You have 1 month to return the monolith.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I told him to take it back. Well, he decided to take it back because he looked up other people who have done the same thing,
Right.
with these other ones, and some people called cops on him and stuff. But so he's like, I'm going to take it back. So he took it back, and there's a security guard there, and so he goes to the security guard, and he's like, hey, we took it. We figured we'd bring it back, and the security guard's like, no, I'm glad you took it. I wanted to get rid of it anyway.
Yeah, it's causing too much work for him.
So then he brought it back. So
Everyone was loitering.
I think it's at my house.
You guys need to go plant it somewhere in Romania.
That is not the direction I was going. Although it does say reckless. It
It's
does
reckless.
speak to reckless.
It's reckless.
So when we talk about this particular story, generally most people, it's prodigal children, like a kid, and there's lots of them.
Yeah.
When I worked at Forest Home, I had so many great staff, all great people, all like kids you wish were your own kids, you know, because they're giving up a summer, they're worship leaders, they're in cabins counseling kids and leading kids to Christ. I mean, they're great, great kids. But they all had stories similar to this, where there was a moment they got out of college, they did their own thing, they went a little crazy. Leslie, I think last time we were on the podcast, talked about that was kind of her story. It wasn't maybe true prodigal, but certainly running away from God. But there are all kinds of different people that can be reckless, right? So after my mom died, me and my sisters gathered together in the pie shop that my mom used to work at. It was the night that she died, and we were in this retirement facility. I just wanted to get out of there. So we hung around, we ate pie, we talked about my mom, and I'm talking to my sister, and I said, I just had these weird feelings because, I didn't grow up in a Christian home, and they're kind of fight all the time, and my dad was an alcoholic. I said, I have these weird feelings, like I miss her for sure, but I don't have these great family memories. And she says, well, that's because Mom did not protect us. And then she told me some stories about the abuse of my dad that I didn't know, which is really a creepy way to spend that evening, but it kind of opened up my eyes. But parents can be reckless.
Yeah.
Right? Friends can be reckless. You can be reckless with each other and maybe some of the words you say. I'm positive that I've been reckless with words with other people.
Right.
There's all kinds of people that can be reckless. But in this story, if you think about it, the way it lines up, who do you want to be? Who do you not want to be? I mean, I think it's obvious the person that, or at least attitude-wise, that I would want to be in this story, right?
Yeah, the father.
Yeah. You want to be the guy that says, hey, welcome back.
Yeah, you don't want to be the older brother.
And you definitely don't want to be the older brother.
Or the younger, or the prodigal.
Yeah, the prodigal. In some ways, would you rather be the prodigal than the older
brother? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I think everybody is the prodigal and
at
or
some point,
the older
for sure.
brother. Like,
Right.
Everybody is both. Like
The
it's
best exposition I've seen on this, Tim Keller does like a 10-minute like kind of video theatric drama where he like involves this table. You know what? I'll send you the link, Jonathan. You want to throw it in the show notes so people can see it? I've seen a lot
I
of.
don't know how to get to the show notes.
I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay, Jack will do it. Jack will do it. It is incredible. I wish I would have brought some notes from it, but yeah, people, if you're listening to this and you want to see it, I think
Well, it's
awesome.
better because Tim Keller, he had been up for hours by the time he did that. It wasn't like 15 minutes.
Right.
So
Yeah, nice.
So he was sharp and
Have you seen that?
ready to go. I haven't.
Yeah, exactly. Nice.
So I definitely would like to be that person, that one that can welcome somebody back that has been reckless and lost. All right? So let's think about this for a second and how we can get there. I mean, I agree with you, though, Jonathan. I don't know if we kind of cut you up, but I totally agree that we're all prodigal, right?
Well, in the gap between them, I think between the prodigal and the brother, is just knowing, like it's humility. It's just knowing that you're broken,
Yeah.
Right.
Like the older brother was also broken. He just didn't know it. And that was actually his problem. That was his brokenness. And the younger brother was broken, and he understood that. He learned that. So I think we're all in there somewhere. Like we all have a standard for other people, but the standard we have for other people is based on ourselves.
Yeah.
It's like, I am the standard. Like, how much forgiveness ought there be given to other people? Well, as much as I've been given.
Right. Yeah.
And if they get more than that, they shouldn't. That's not okay.
Right.
And so I think that we're all in that camp, and that the person who recognizes their own recklessness and the way that they've messed things up, the more that they can recognize that, the more they can actually be like the Father.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, who is this? I mean, when Jesus tells the story, he's obviously telling it about people, but there's a specific people group I think he's targeting. I mean, his whole ministry is, I came to seek and to save the lost.
Right.
This lost person will do a big party. You know, he tells the story about the lost coin. Hey, woman finds the lost coin. She invites all of her friends over to celebrate with her, right? That's kind of the deal. But then there's the other side, too, which is those people that feel like they got it all together.
Right.
And those were the ones that
Right.
couldn't celebrate lost people. Those were the ones that made it about themselves and their own self-righteousness.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So that was the Pharisees in this story. So it's not just a story of people. It's a story of what is happening in the world. Jesus came. He wants to seek and save the lost. The religious people will say, no, man, let's make it about us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and it's putting yourself in a hierarchy of like, we're better than you. You know, I think of the story Jesus told about the Pharisee and the tax collector coming to the temple to pray, and the Pharisee comes in and thanks God that he's so much better than everybody else.
Right.
Thank you that I am healthy. I eat
Yeah.
good.
I tithe.
I go to church. I do all the stuff that you're supposed to do. And then the tax collector, it says, wouldn't even come near. So he stands afar off, and all he's got is, I know I'm a sinner. Forgive me.
Yeah.
Like, and he's ashamed. He's the guy who would say, if I go into the building, it'll probably burst into flames.
Yeah.
and yet Jesus says he's justified rather than the religious guy, because he gets something. He understands that his entire righteous, all his righteousness, all of his goodness, all of God's favor for him has nothing to do with his performance.
Yeah.
The guy who comes in, hey, look at my performance. Thank you, God, for the way that you helped me be better than everybody else.
Yeah.
And so I think it's mentality mostly.
These are the verses that are right before that story. This is how it starts. Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, this man welcomes sinners and he eats with them. There's your context right there.
Yeah.
You know? And so then Jesus tells that story. Now, I think there's some ways for us to think differently so that we can align ourselves more with the Father. One, we absolutely need to think of ourselves as prodigal, not as better than. Pride is always the God separator. Always,
Right.
always, always. So we definitely need to come to it with that attitude. How does that help us with other prodigals?
I think as a dad, I've seen this oftentimes. I mean, I feel like in my experience, this is not always the case, that moms generally have been more high achievers than dads. Like dads have gotten breaks where moms didn't. Like if a mom's in a successful spot, she worked harder than dad got to get to that same successful spot. So there's this little bit of like, as a dad, just going into life, being able to look at your kids with like, oh man, I remember that battle. I remember that struggle. I remember when I did my stupid thing and I needed people to help me and come around me and lift me back up. And so when you've been that one, and especially when it's somebody that you love, it's your kid, and you just see, I mean, I know plenty of dads who had substance abuse and that kind of stuff, and they see their kids going down that road, and it just breaks their heart in a way that if it, I don't know, just in a way that connects them.
Do we do that? Like, I agree that it's a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm clearing my throat because
I just
woke up. But do we remember all the dumb stuff? Like as parents, I feel like as parents, we kind of forgive all of our old stuff. We've forgotten. It's been so long ago that when our kids do it, are we either forgetting it or just going, well, I screwed up, so I don't want you to screw up in the same way? I don't know.
I think there's some of that where it's like knowing the pain that you've gone through and wanting to keep your kids from it. I think that's part of it. But I also think a lot of people go through rehab or change their life or whatever. They have those experiences and they take full credit. And if they take full credit,
gotcha.
then they will put that on other people to do the same thing.
Right.
Rather than, no, I was forgiven. Like the one who understands that they are forgiven, I think, are better at forgiving others. But the one who's just like, no, I fixed it all.
Yeah, did it on my own.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've got 3 points because, well, I'm a pastor. That's what we do. It's not a message unless you have 3. But I think 3 ways that we can learn to live differently. Learn to live more like Dad, to be accepting to those people. We've said this before. We're drawn to environments of acceptance. Yeah. So how can we create that? Culture teaches us to say, I'm done with you. And God challenges us to say, I'm waiting for you. All right? You guys ever watch Parks and Recreation?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Okay.
Not a lot, but I've seen some episodes.
Okay, all right. So Tom Haverford, he's kind of a young, punky, all about himself kind of guy.
Okay.
And this conversation happens with Tom.
Is that Aziz's character?
What's that?
Is that Aziz Ansari's character?
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
That's right. So Tom says, if you don't make it, then you're on my dunzo list. And Ben says, what's a dunzo list? It means you and I, we're dunzo. Hanging out and getting food together? Dunzo. You want to come over to my house and play video games? Dunzo. Hey, Tom, you want to come play putt-putt with me? No, we're dunzo. And Andy to April, babe, we got to make that meeting.
Yeah, I love it. And if you know that show, you can picture his voice too, because it's more squeaky. We're dunzo. It's so funny.
Let me ask you a question. To everyone, our audience, who's on your dunzo list? Mm-hmm. Who is that person that when you think of them, you just would rather not see them again? If they're in Costco, you want to be on the other side of Costco. Who's on your list? I don't think we're going to say that.
Right. I got some people.
There's a guy at the church.
Yeah.
God has a different way of dealing with it. And he says this, this is the actual line. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him, was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son. He threw his arms around him, and he kissed him. When did he see him?
When he's a long way off?
Yeah. But why? He's waiting. Mm-hmm. He's just waiting for him to come back, right? I think when I hear this story told with parents who have children that are prodigal, that I think that they understand the waiting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But are we the kind of people that when somebody has done something hurtful to us, are we waiting? Are we praying for restoration? Are we praying that the day will come back?
No, it's easy just to cancel them and give up on them.
Yeah.
And just get over it.
Right. And I don't know. What is the right attitude in that?
It depends. There's such a fine boundary on it too, because on the antithesis of it is like for my relationship with my dad right now is super broken, and he does not make the best effort. He's never met my daughters. They're now our oldest is 3. He's never seen my daughters. And any time I try to invest into that relationship, I end up getting hurt. Because I will invest into it and we'll make these plans for him to come, and he sounds like he's all in, and then I always know the week of it's him canceling because he's sick or something random. And that's happened so many times. And so I've come to a point where, you know what, I need to set up better boundaries. And so I'm done investing into it because I'm at a point now where I'm just really setting myself up for hurt. So there is a fine line between it, because there are boundaries in these relationships especially when you don't want to set yourself up for more pain and hurt. So that's, I think, from the kid perspective. From the parent perspective, man, I don't have a ton of experience in it because my kids aren't prodigal right now. The only thing I could think of is the hell that I put my mom through and the pain that I know she felt when I went prodigal.
Right. Was there a moment where she just that you can look back, reflect on, and go, wow, I'm back?
Yeah, so whenever I share my testimony, I talk about, people always ask me, when you were incarcerated, all your times in the system, the years in rehab, what was like the hardest part? And it was never the gangs, it was never the fights, it was never the access to drugs that was there. It was, the hardest part was the first time seeing my mom at a visit. And she comes in, and dude, when you're a little boy, like, my mom was so proud of me.
Yeah.
It was either your parents were proud of you in sports or grades. Mine was sports, right? So she was proud of me in sports, and she had that look of proud on her face. But then when she came to prison, that look was gone, and I was no longer her baby boy. She was sad, she was hurt, she was broken. She just wanted to help me. And then it wasn't right when I got out. I had to prove myself a little.
Sure, yeah.
You think like, it's like you think it is going to be Return of the Prodigal Son. But it's not. I had to build some trust. You think there's going to be a big party, and there wasn't a big party.
Right.
It was like you screwed up, and you got to kind of work your way back into the family. And so, yeah, a couple months would go by, and I proved my sobriety. And I would say when I started my internship at the church, that look of proud was back on her face when I gave my first message there, and she came for it.
Oh,
I would say
wow.
that was the look of proud. It was back. And now, we have the best relationship. But those prodigal moments are hard, and I think there was a waiting period for her that was really hard for her.
Yeah, no question. The waiting is difficult.
It's hell in the hallway.
Yeah.
One door closes, another one opens, but man, it is hell in the hallway.
Okay, here, let me talk. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Jonathan.
No.
Okay, let me give you another one. Culture teaches us to say, I'll forgive you if you make a full apology.
Yeah.
And God tells us, forgive before the full apology comes. The verse says, so son's prepared, he's on the street, he looks what the pigs are eating, goes, man, my dad's servants eat better than this. I'm going home. He has this whole prepared speech. Dad, I screwed up.
Yeah, the dad just runs. Like, what's crazy is the dad runs towards him.
He runs to him, and it says, this is what he said, I will set out, and I'll go back to my father, and I'll say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. All right? So then, Dad runs and sees him. And then he says this. Son said, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer be worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, quick, bring the best robe, put it on, and put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. He never got to finish.
Yeah.
Right?
I love that. And what I love about that is the father runs towards him. He takes that 50, 90, 100 steps towards the kid. So all the kid has to do is just take one step into the loving arms of his father. And I think for our relationship with Jesus, all we need to do is, Jesus doesn't need the apology. He knows what we've done. He just wants you to take that one step into his arms. And then it's in his arms that we get the signet ring. We get the inheritance from the Father. And the last thing I love about it is the Father rolls up his robe. He strips his pride. He comes out in humility. The Father is completely countercultural. That kid should have been begging for forgiveness. He should have been on the ground, repenting, turning away from his sin. But the Father doesn't put up with any of that. He just says, you know what? Fall into my arms.
Well, really, what he's asking is to be a servant.
Yep.
I want to be a servant now.
Yeah.
So you're giving us all from the Jesus perspective.
Yeah.
And when we come to Jesus, we don't have to prove ourselves.
Yeah.
We'll have to if you go a couple of years, then you'll be back in, and I'll have that sense of pride in me. He gets that pride right away. Yeah. But how do we do that? And how is it possible? Can we forgive somebody before the full apology comes out?
Here's the thing. Apology is about me.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is about you. Like if you've wronged me and I need an apology, that becomes about me. I don't know that you can effectively restore somebody if your goal is yourself.
Yeah.
Like if there's a broken person and my goal is me,
yeah,
I need you to apologize for my feelings.
That's
to
so
be
true,
better.
bro. Because whenever I apologize, I'm doing it like if I wrong you, Jonathan, I
Right.
apologize because like I want to get it off of my conscience.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right, but even demanding an apology, until
but
they make it
demanding,
right. Like if I'm requiring an apology, then it's about me. It's not about that person
I
anymore.
would say the only pushback I would give is there's a justice to it, right?
Right.
If I have been hurt,
Right.
then as far as our world and justice goes,
Right.
then I should expect I should expect some kind of restitution. I mean, that is the way the world works.
But how would you rather get that with your kids? Would you rather go to your kids and say, you need to apologize to me right now? Or would you rather have them make that decision on their own and recognize that they need to apologize, right?
Right.
Well, and he did that. One of the interesting things about the story is that the dad didn't go after him. That the dad did give him the inheritance that he begged for when he was being a punk.
Yeah.
Right.
Like he set him up for the whole thing, and then he didn't go after him. He just waited for him. Like there was this confidence of like, well, you're not ready. This isn't going to work out. I'll see you when you get back.
Right.
But the whole thing, like with the father, all you see is giving. All you see is giving. It's like the son comes back, you're back, man. We're having a party.
Yeah, it's never about him.
It's never about, like you wronged me, you hurt me. It's always like, as one of the things that I've talked to Sandy about with the kids as they're getting older is one of the things that a mom will go through is like a little kid will come and like, oh, I hurt my finger. Will you kiss it? And then they get older and they don't really want to even hug their mom. There's this gap,
Right.
there's
Yep.
this distance. And I told her, I said, this is my thought on this. Is I said, your job is just to give to them. Like when you hug them.
Yeah.
You don't ask them to hug you. You give it to them because it'll come back around. You just continue to give to them, and they will respond over time. But if you you don't like to hug me anymore, and you make like a guilt trip around it, that is not drawing them closer. That's pushing them further.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's what we do with apologies. Is we think, oh, if I can just demand an apology, and that somehow I'm fixing something. You're actually making it worse.
Well, this is what it would sound like to you if you're listening. Go, Dad, just admit all the ways you've hurt me. Mm-hmm. Just, that you didn't make time for me, that you pursued work more than me. Mm-hmm. Once I get that,
right,
we can move on.
Yeah.
Just admit that you drank too much and your angry words, that you weren't there for me. Just admit it. We can move on. Son, just admit you haven't treated me with respect. I've done all this and paid your bills and raised you, and you're ungrateful, right? I mean, if that other person would just finally say it. Mm-hmm. Well, all I'm going to tell you is, like, my wife and I, we have to forgive each other all the time. But the amount of full confessions that I get as a husband or she gets as a wife, right? It just doesn't work like that.
Right.
Because my purpose isn't to get that person on their knees to beg forgiveness to me.
Yeah.
My purpose is to raise them into all the person that they want to be.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'll tell you guys both this. Chad's got a 3-year-old, his oldest kid, and Jonathan's got kids in high school, and they sort of kind of sometimes push him away or don't want to be around him. It's just reality, right? Mm-hmm. To create that environment where you accept, it does come back. Mm-hmm. And now, I got a kid who's 27. I think he's 27. How old is he? I don't know. But he calls, and he's in Austin right now, and he'll FaceTime us to show us places where he's at. Mm-hmm. Right? Like he wants to be there. And that road went through prodigal moments.
Right.
But each time I would get a prodigal phone call, my response was always, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you called me. Let's walk through this together."
Yeah.
Right.
That's great.
Yeah, I was thinking about when we got a puppy, and when we got the puppy, Talia.
It's just a bad idea. If all you get from
don't
this
worry,
is-
people. You will not hear that phrase from me.
Talia, my daughter, asked for a puppy for 3 years, and the landlord finally said yes, and so we got a puppy. And the first week there was this sense of competition between the kids of who the puppy was going to love more.
Yeah.
And I said, and my daughter especially, she's been looking forward for this dog. Like in her mind, she's like, it's sleeping in my bed, we're cuddling up, and the dog instantly was drawn to the boys beyond more than her. And she was, and the puppy was like, I'm not the runt of this litter, you are, to my daughter. Like it was this picking on her. But I, so she had kind of mopey, a couple days in, she's kind of mopey. And I told her, I said, here's the competition you need to have. Not the competition is who does the dog love more. The competition of who loves the dog more. win that competition, you'll win the other competition.
Right.
Like, be the one. Like, if you're the one feeding them all the
Yeah.
time, you're the one walking them all the time, you're the one playing with them all the time, you win. And I think that's this story. Like, do you want that restoration of the other person? Be the one who gives. Be the one who forgives. Be the one who, you got your deadbeat son out there, falling off, just, hey, can I take you to lunch?
Yeah.
I'm not telling you anything that has to happen to you. Thanksgiving. Hey, where are you going for Thanksgiving? Come over. Be part of the family. I think that there's a place for the conversation of, hey, if you need help with anything,
Yeah.
I'm there.
There's a good, what's that Steve Carell movie that came out maybe 2 years ago, Amazon Prime movie about his kid. It's a true story, and his kid has a drug addiction.
Oh, yeah, Beautiful Boy.
Beautiful Boy. That's a great one that has a great prodigal story. It's another good resource for people.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I got one more.
I don't know if it ends well.
I don't think it does.
I don't know. I don't remember how it
think
ends.
so. I didn't see it, but
No, it does end well. I think it
Does
does
it?
end well. I think
Okay,
it does.
all right.
Watch it and let us know, audience.
okay. So number 3, culture wonders, what will people think? And God says, don't worry about the opinions of others. Celebrate the return. I mean, this is where we end up, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him, your brother has come, he replied, and your father has killed the fatted calf because he has him back safe and sound. So 2 people were upset at this story.
The calf.
Yeah, the calf
The
definitely.
mom. The calf's
Yeah.
mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The older brother became angry, refused to go in. His father went in and pleaded with him, but he answered his father, look, all these years I've been slaving for you, never disobeyed your orders, yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with. I've had goat. Dude, you're not missing anything. But when a son of yours who has squandered your property with prostitutes comes home, you kill the fatted calf for him. The reaction seems harsh, but let's face it, that's kind of the way our culture is. People are always attacking Christians because they say we're judgy. They don't treat people with grace. But if you witness the lack of grace, if you want to witness that, just look at culture, right?
Especially currently.
Yeah. Ray Rice is a wife beater, and Adrian Peterson is a child beater, and Jesse James and Kristen Stewart are cheaters, and Michael Vick is a dog killer, and Justin Bieber's a spoiled brat. And like, once you make your name for some mistake that you make, that's how you are labeled. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think people can reinvent themselves over time, but yeah. It's interesting because I feel like in the story I have in my life, I related, especially younger, I related most to the older brother.
Yeah.
Because I had an older brother who was he was the prodigal. And what irritated me was how gifted he is. He's
Wow.
just everything I wanted to be good at, he was better at. Part of that is being the younger brother, a year and a half younger than somebody.
Right.
But he's like 6'4". He's got a full head of hair. He's got perfect teeth.
He still has hair?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How's that happen?
Because he's awesome. But
I guess. Wow.
But so he was always that guy. But the one thing I had was I wasn't into the party scene. I wasn't into the drugs. I wasn't going after the girls. He was doing all of that stuff. But then he would just and I was like, well, I'm just, I'm going to walk this path. He's walking that path. But then he would have these moments, because we were both raised in the church. He would have these moments throughout his life where he would just, you know what? I'm done with this scene. I'm going back to church. Yeah. And he'd go to church and like 20 people would come with him. And he's like more effective at everything I wanted to do well. And it made me so mad. I'm like, he's a terrible person. Like,
right.
And so like, I relate to that story of just like, when you feel like you're trying hard and then that guy literally just flips a switch and just like, I'm not going to drink this month. And tons of people are going to get ministry benefit from that. So yeah, I feel like I relate to that story.
Right. And I guess what it depends on, right? Like does it matter what everybody else thinks, right?
Yeah.
I guess it sort of just matters what Dad thinks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what you yourself think, I think that matters too. Like, in a sense of humility, like he got to that place. He finally arrived. He finally realized, and his older brother didn't, even though he stayed home. He got to that place where I'm broken. I can't make it on my own. I'm only good enough to be a slave in the house of my dad.
Sure.
Like nobody else will even hire me. I gotta go find family, and I gotta take the lowest job.
Yeah.
I think you win when you say that.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things that I think are really important for somebody who's walked through this. And I'm thinking specifically of parents who've had children go prodigal. Mm-hmm. And the first thing I would tell them is stop regretting. Mm. I mean, you can look back and go, if I had only done this, if I had only not been so hard on this, if I had only been more accepting this, whatever.
Yeah, I'll definitely affirm that because my mom will randomly apologize. She'll be like, I'm just so sorry. Like, I wish I would have done better before all of that. Like, I wish I was there more. And I just always tell her, I say, Mom, there is nothing you could have done better. Like, that was fully my decisions I was making.
Right.
So parents need to hear that. If you have a person that's prodigal right now, you got to stop those regrets because a lot of the decisions they're making themselves.
Yeah. And yeah, you could do better. I'm not saying that there's,
right.
I mean, there's absolutely, as a parent, there's all kinds of ways that you could do. I mean, I just got into it last night with my daughter and it just happens all the time. And I look back and go, should I have done that? Probably not. You know, I mean, that's like parenting, right? That's just the way it is. Yeah. But people do have the choice to choose. Yeah. And looking back with regret, you know, I guess maybe you get worried that what other people are going to think or that your kid's down off the deep end or whatever. If we could lift that off of your plate.
Yeah.
Because kids are going to choose.
Yeah.
Anything else you would tell somebody whose kid has gone?
I think in this story, I think the father had confidence that he was coming back. Like, I think he was looking out, you know, like, how did he see him from far off? Because he was watching for him.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a confidence that, you know, like just live in that of like, oh man, when God gets a hold of you, it's going to be good. You know, when you get over that, like speak that constantly, like just speak it until you're proven wrong that, hey, you're going to be, this isn't going to own you for life. Because a lot of times people are doing the opposite of that. They're saying, "Oh, people don't change," or you're never, you know, you're never going to get over this, or you've been like this your whole life, or this is going to destroy you. Like, yeah, more likely, the more you say it, the more you believe it. But when you're just like, "Oh, I can't wait," you know, like the Apostle Paul when he was called into ministry, his journey that he was about to go on was given to him at the very beginning of just like, oh, well, you're going to suffer for me, but you're going to be used greatly for me. This was all right at the beginning. It was just instilled in him that this is your walk, this is your journey. I think we can do that. I think we can do that with other people.
The reason why the kid was loved was what? Only because he was the kid. Mm-hmm. Not because he was good enough, not because he was smart enough, not because he was talented, not because that was the only reason.
Right.
And with your own kid, that's got to be the beginning and end.
Yeah.
Not when you get a better job.
Right.
If you hadn't married that person. Another one is like if you follow God. Mm-hmm. You know, people are upset. Their kid's prodigal. My kid just decided he's going to be an atheist.
Right.
You know what? It's still. What I always tell people is life is long.
Yeah.
You know, the story is still being written.
Yeah.
With this person or that spouse or your kid, whatever. And let's see what God does. But your role is what the Father's role was.
Right.
And just love just because they're your kid.
Right. Yeah.
And show them that however you can.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I like it.
I did too. Well, man, I've been up for about an hour now. I'm feeling a little tired.
You got to nap?
We better cut this off so Jack can get back to bed.
I want to eat, man. I'm hungry.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Every Tuesday, new episode. Check back. See you.
All right. See you guys.
Thanks for joining us for these last 10 steps. If you'd like to join us for another journey, or if you know someone else who's on this walk, subscribe to our podcast at 10 Steps Further on iTunes, or simply search 10 Steps Further on your podcast app. And if you'd like to be part of the conversation with a question or a comment or a criticism or even a wisecrack, look us up on Facebook. We've created a Facebook group where you can be part of the conversation. We'll see you next time.